recorded. We will record this session, just start that, and then we will send it out after the fact, along with any links that we might use. So you guys are welcome to, or if you just really love it that much, maybe you guys just enjoy listening to us so much that you want to listen to it on repeat. Well, I guess it's right here on the top of the hour, we can go ahead and dive in, and then people can join in as they continue to come in. Thank you guys for being here. Today's, webinar is a joint one, which I'm really excited about. So we'll kind of introduce ourselves, and we'll both kind of have a couple different things to share. But the topic for today is, why do your clients hire you? And so I think by the end, you should have some good nuggets and tidbits for your law firm on what you can do to really set yourself apart and explain to people why they should hire you. So are you all good, Steve? Let's go ahead and dive right into it, I say.
I'm ready.
Love it. So we'll start with some quick introductions. If you are familiar with our typical monthly web series or webinar series, typically that's John and I. And so I'm still Jana from Spotlight Branding, a brand strategist here. And so I will be, that's me right there, and also here. So that's who I am, and Steve will introduce himself in just a little bit. But as far as jumping right into the topic, the first thing that I wanted to hit on was leveraging your current contacts. So the image on the right there is our content loop, which some of you guys may be familiar with already. And it is this idea that we finally were able to put on paper that explains what it is that we really want to accomplish, which is keeping your entire network of leads, prospects, current and past clients, other attorneys, colleagues, friends and family, all those people in this loop where they're continuously getting this really helpful, relevant content that keeps you top of mind. So that's what the content loop is there. But the entire idea behind Spotlight Branding and what we do is to consistently bring in more referrals and higher quality clients to the attorneys that we work with. And the reason that we love referrals so much is partially because they are just really primed. They're a lot of times better quality on their own because they heard about you from a trusted source. They usually don't try and haggle on price the same way some people who are finding you from lead generation efforts might be. And the relationship is already built there. There's a level of trust already established. So referrals are great. And along with that is a Texas Tech study from their School of Business. They did this study on law firms that said that 83% of your clients are willing to send you those referrals, yet only 29% actually do. And the big reason for that discrepancy is just this lack of top of mind awareness and staying in touch with people the way that I think could be done. So that's really where we like to focus our efforts. So that being said, who are some people that you can include in that content loop? What are some examples of, those connections? So since we do work exclusively with lawyers, obviously it's based on your practice area. So, if you're personal injury, doctors or chiropractors are going to be great. If you do family law, mediators and marriage counselors are huge. CPAs if you do tax or business. So finding those different strategic relationships and partnerships to really nurture is going to be huge, and making sure that they're sending you referrals whenever that time arises. I know that right now with COVID, trying to do some of the traditional networking of happy hour or, taking them to lunch isn't quite as feasible. So something digital has definitely been on the rise this year, especially. And then as far as additional organizations, I know business lawyers, BNI, Business Networking International, or your local Chamber of Commerce are great, or even these other associations just for attorneys on how to really grow your business and get that chance to network with other attorneys, like how to manage a small law firm or the $1 Million Solution for estate planning attorneys. Those are good ideas on where you can look to get those strategic connections really built. And then here, as far as your value proposition, which is the reason that people are looking to hire you, what it is that sets you apart from your competitors down the street. It's really important to showcase immediately upon arrival of your website who you are and what you do, but most importantly, how you can help somebody. And so we really love this book by Donald Miller called Building a Story Brand. And if anyone has not read it, I highly recommend checking it out. It is a great, story, or a great book all about building your own brand and using the power of story to do that. So I'll give you the quick synopsis, but still go check it out. Essentially, you want to position yourself as the guide, the Yoda, the Gandalf, who is helping the hero, who's your client, get through their troublesome situation to the happy ending. And so all of your imagery and your content on your website and all over the internet really needs to convey that messaging that you are guiding them, that you're helping them through the struggles that they're facing. And the important part there is you're not the hero of the story. You are the guide and the client is the hero. So making sure that you're not positioning yourself in a way that makes you seem like you're in it for you, but that you're in it for them, I think is really important. So when it comes to us helping you out, stay tuned to the end because I actually have a little bit more information at the end about a special offer that we are doing. But first up, before that, I definitely want you guys to hear from Steve here. So this is Steve. I don't know if he's above or below me on the recording here, but this is Steve Cashdollar, and I will let you introduce yourself a bit, and then we'll do some questions and stuff at the end. But yeah, Steve, I'll let you kind of go ahead and take it away.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Jana. Thanks for inviting me. It's great. I've been excited about doing this. I was kind of pacing, and then I realized when I got here, I wasn't plugged in. I got a battery warning. So
Oh, no.
dropped out. So anyway, so I'm an author, a teacher, trainer, coach, speaker. I spend a fair amount of my time helping teach professionals how to develop their clients. And that could be anything from a financial advisor to a CPA to an engineer. But my real specialty, what I really like doing is talking to attorneys. And that's part of why we put together this joint effort today. So thanks for that. I call it a systematic approach to developing new clients. And it's really about relationships. I guess we all kind of know that. But I was making a note before we started today, Jan. I was thinking, I even looked up, I looked up law. I hadn't thought about this for a while, but I read this. Law is a system of rules, regulations, rights, duties, and all the things that you guys learn in law school. But then when it comes to developing clients, rules, laws, that I don't mean to be disparaging, but most of the attorneys I know, they kind of wing it when it comes to their client development, unless maybe they have some help or they had some history, but they most likely didn't learn how to develop new clients in law school. So that's probably why that's job security, I guess, in a way. So what the idea is to help teach professionals how to have a bit of a process so that when Jana and Spotlight Branding bring new people in through their efforts and your other work of networking and so forth, when you're in front of a person, and now that could be Zoom or maybe phone, or maybe in your marketplace, it's in person from time to time in a safe way. So the things I'm going to teach you are focused, really, there's a 7-step process that I'm going to talk about. We'll get to probably 3 of those, and I'll talk about all 7. The idea is that, I don't want to use a sports analogy, but I'm going to. When a football team takes the ball, let's say they receive the ball, and it's the first set of downs, they know, typically a good team knows what those first 10 or maybe 20 plays are, unless something changes quickly. So they don't typically wing it. They typically just go by what they practiced all week long, and they know what those are. By the way, they do those at the end of the game too, when they're down 3 and there's 2 minutes to go. They kind of know that drill. So I won't talk about sports again, I don't think. But the idea is that we could do a lot better on developing a process for how we're going to approach, say, in that first meeting or those first meetings or 2 when we're trying to establish a relationship. So before I go on to the next slide, I'm going to ask you if I said, what is your process for creating a relationship with a potential new client? let's use, for example, a business client who comes to you through your marketing efforts, and it's your first meeting. If you're taking notes today, if you have a process, bravo, and we can talk about that. You can chat in questions about your process. But typically what happens is we just sort of, you know, the terms by the seat of your pants, we sort of just use our skill, our charm, our, you know, our knowledge and our experience too, to help get that meeting started. But I'm going to teach you something called an upfront agreement here in a second. And an upfront agreement does two things. It eases the stress in an early meeting. It makes a better first impression, and it gets you in a friendly way staying in control over the progress of the meeting. I'll explain that in a second. Now, Gallup did a survey, and in a professional meeting with an attorney, would you say that, what did they find? Are people a little bit anxious, or are they super relaxed and open and laid back? That's a loaded question, isn't it? So I know typically whenever my business required an attorney, if I didn't have a relationship and I needed a special situation, I was always a little bit on edge and not knowing. And part of that is because I didn't know what was going to happen. I wasn't sure if it'd be, you know, multiple lawyers sitting around a conference table. That might be a little intimidating. I didn't know if it'd be somebody a lot older than me, or super knowledgeable, or super busy, or was I just bothering them? Was I big enough? You know, all those questions were going through my mind. So if you're taking notes, here's a place to start. People will judge you and start to decide whether they're going to hire you and you're going to work together in the first 3 minutes. Did you know that? You know, first impressions. Do we judge people pretty quickly? We do. Now, hopefully they'll hear you out and hear about your experience and how you might approach their situation, or how you might take them on as a client, and the process, how that works and so forth. But here's a tool that you can use starting tomorrow to help you ease. Picture it like a balloon that's full of air, and it's pressure. And that when that person sits across the table from you, even on a Zoom call, or if it's in your conference room, that pressure is pretty hefty. So your job in those first minute or 2 or 3 is to just let a little pressure out of the balloon. Your potential client will be more honest too when they're able to breathe. They'll be a little more forthcoming, and they'll probably hear what you say in the first 2 or 3 minutes, because if there's too much pressure, they don't hear a word you're saying. They're still thinking about what they've got to say, or did they bring their notes, or whatever might be going through their mind. Fair enough? Okay, so it's called an upfront agreement. Now, there's 4 parts to it. You can see, I hope everybody can see the screen. Is it showing up okay, Jana?
It is on mine, yes. So if anyone is not able to see the screen, feel free to write in the Q&A any issues that you may have with video or audio, or any questions that you just might have in general. We'll get to those at the end.
So there's 4 initials there, A, N, O, T, and this is typically, if I were an attorney, this is how I would start my meeting in some fashion. You can put your own personality into this too, of course. I might say, Jana, I appreciate the A. I appreciate you coming in today. Thanks for taking time. It's nice to finally meet you. I appreciate it. Well, so naturally, you're going to have questions today, and part of our hour will be designed to help you just ask your questions and sort of, you know, anything you're worried about, your concerns. And obviously, I'm going to have questions, and my questions aren't designed to put you on the spot, or to, you know, they're designed to help me understand, you know, what you're thinking, what some of your concerns are there specific issues right now, what experiences, all those things. So today's really maybe not to draw a conclusion, but to just understand and see if we're a fit, to see if the things I'm good at and I like to do and the things that you need are a match. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So I'm off the role play for a second. Just friendly, put it in your own words, easy. Take the pressure out of the balloon. And then the last of the acronym, T, so you saw, I appreciate, naturally you're going to have questions, and I want you to ask those today. Obviously, I'm going to have some questions designed to help me understand and to listen, hear you out. And the T is timetable. So we had originally set aside 45 minutes for today. Is that still okay with you, Jana? So the thing I don't want is for Jana to say, hey, boy, you know, I've got to pick up my kid from soccer in 5 minutes. What do you got for me? Or whatever that might happen, so that it honors your time, you honor her time, and it just clears the air. So now all of a sudden there's not so much wonder on what's going to happen on my side and also on my potential client Jana's side. So it's easy, upfront agreement. I use the acronym just so you'll remember it. Jana, I know you use this a little bit in your meetings, this type of approach. Would you mind sharing what you find when you use an upfront agreement with a potential attorney client?
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head with the balloon analogy, where I think it eases some pressure by letting, whoever I'm talking to know that by the end, there are a few different ways it can happen. We can decide that maybe it's a fit, we decide maybe it's not, or maybe we need to schedule another conversation. And I think having those, defined outcomes that aren't necessarily you have to sign or I'm going to be so mad at you, I think takes a lot of the pressure off and allows for really just good conversation about whether or not this truly is a good fit. So I love this. Yeah, this is really good.
So Janet didn't know I was going to ask. It sounded like she was a client there, but she wasn't really.
I promise it wasn't.
Yeah, not really, sort of. So here's the thing about starting a relationship. Thinking about those first 3 minutes are critical. There are 3 pieces that we know help us bond and build rapport, and for you to start to build trust. The research we've done over the years shows that people hire an attorney for 3 reasons. One is that first appearance, that first impression. 2 is their knowledge and their experience. And 3 is if there's a specialty and if they start to build some trust. The first one is really a person to person. Before I even know where you went to law school, whether if I care, or whether I know anything that you've done or a client that you've had, maybe I wasn't referred. That first is just really people to people, relationship, trust, first impressions, and that can be kind of scary. I'm going to take a breath here for a second. If you're doing a lot of Zoom calls, have somebody you trust. Maybe it's a partner or a spouse, significant other, somebody who'll be honest with you. Record one of your Zoom calls and let them look at it and look at the background. Look at, I know you wouldn't do this, but a t-shirt and a baseball cap on backwards, even though you're at home, so you do see that in meetings sometimes these days. So just dress like you would if they were coming to a conference room for a serious meeting, even though you might be the only one in the conference room. And then have somebody check the sound, how you're coming across, and you'll be looking for things like pace, tone, for friendliness, and are you stumbling through it, or is it somewhat organized, and you kind of know where you're going to lead? It's hard to do, but one of the best things we found in all of our coaching, whether it's in corporate America or professional America, like all of you, is that we don't practice. We're one of the few professions, communicating, that doesn't practice. Football teams practice, golfers practice. The golfers take coaches with them to every match, don't they? Some of them have a putting coach and an iron coach and a driver coach. But at some point, we sort of stop that learning or that improving. And here's a thought. And client development with most professionals is a little bit out of our comfort zone. So if this is our comfort zone, if my forehead is a little bit out of the comfort zone. So picture client development might not be a reason why you decided to go to law school and practice law. If you were into client development, you might have gone to IBM or Apple or LinkedIn or somebody. I mean, I'm kind of thinking out loud here. So it's reasonable to think that if you're going to get better at building relationships, which will work and help you all through your activities, whether it's going to court or meeting with an adversary or whatever, even in addition to client development, it's about relationships and communication skills. So the slide shows there's 3 things here. This is common sense to a certain point, but people tend to like to do business with people who are like them. I'm going to show you some ways to do that even better than you already do. People tend to trust people who are like them. People tend to want to do business with people they trust. So that's why those first 3 minutes are so important, more important maybe than you thought, because of that first impression. It's very, very important when people are hiring you. They may not make the final decision in 3 minutes, but it starts to happen. Okay. Anybody, have we seen any questions yet, Jana? Anybody chatting in?
I don't believe we have any yet. No, I think we're all good. If you guys think of any throughout the session, feel free to throw them in the Q&A or raise your hand too. I think is also a
and you
option.
yell at me, Jana, if you see one, because we can stop anywhere. I'd love to answer questions as they come up. So people want to be talking about relationships. People want to be heard and they want to be understood. I relate to this whenever I call for computer help on a phone call where I don't feel like anybody's really hearing me. I may not be able to understand them if they're in another country, but that's partly on me. But typically, I want somebody to hear me out. And if somebody's getting ready to hire you or to do work with you, and it's something, there's a pressing matter, they really need to be understood. So there's a rule. If you're taking notes, here's this next place to write. It's called a 70-30 rule. I believe in those first meetings, your client should be doing 70% of the talking, and you doing 30% of the talking. So be honest with yourself now. How would you rate that in your typical meetings? I know I fought this. I still fight this because I love to talk. And I have so much knowledge. I got to share it all. Well, that's kind of a silly thing to say. So 70-30 if you can. And watch that in your next introductory meeting. Your goal and your job in that first meeting, partially to impress and to understand, is to be the best listener in the legal profession. There's a lot of research that shows when you go to a party, if you to make a nice impression for people to remember you and maybe say he was the best communicator, he was an easy guy to talk to. It's usually because I'm just asking and listening, not so much all the golden tongued oratory that I might be able to come up with. So those are just a couple simple things. First 3 minutes, 70-30. Try that and see what happens to the dynamic you already know. It's a little bit of common sense. So let's talk a little bit more specifically. Those are sort of general rules of thumb, if you don't mind. Let's use the example if you're talking to a business client, potential business client, that's shopping for an attorney that they want to work with and have a relationship with, and have mutual trust with. Okay. Here's just an example. One of the things we know is we can build rapport. We call it questioning strategies, where we don't know it all, and we're not trying to impress with our knowledge yet. When we try to impress with our knowledge, it's called spilling our candy. When I was a kid, we'd go to the theater and we'd get some Milk Duds, or we'd get some, whatever. And if we were in a hurry, we'd rip open the package and the candy would spill. And sometimes we'd get a replacement, sometimes we wouldn't. So I call it spilling the candy in the lobby. It's just too soon. It was too fast. So we don't want to spill all our candy, which for you it's your process, your knowledge, maybe what you're going to do for that client, or some historical data, or whatever might be coming up. Before you do that, I want you to start to ask some connect questions. And Jana, we do this naturally. Like if we're in a happy hour, we're asking about other people. What do you do? Where are you from? But if it's a business client, you can be a little bit more direct. So I would ask, the design on the screen shows to start with the buyer, to start with your client, and ask a question about them. I might say, how did you get started in the red widget business? And then I might, if it's appropriate, not like I'm a detective or, but as gentle as I can. Where all do you operate? It looked to me like when I did a little homework, you're in the Southeast, whatever. I'm asking about the company, and then I'm going to ask about the market. And do you go on LinkedIn or Zoom Info or Facebook and get a little background on that company before they come in? If you don't, then something to think about, a little more homework so you're savvy. If you know a little something about the red widget business, it adds credibility, doesn't it? You can't know everything about every client, but if you've done a little homework, maybe that buyer or that new prospective client wrote an article and it was published in Inc. magazine, or maybe it was in the local newspaper, or maybe they have a blog. If you've read that and you've understood a little bit about, yes, you get the idea. And then the final would be industry. If there are trends in the industry. I was talking to, just an aside here, I was talking to a client today that's in the insurance field, a big company, nationwide company. And I use a system called Zoom Info. so I can find the CEO of the company. I can see how much business they do. I can see employees. And one of the things on Zoom Info is called Scoop. I click on Scoop and it shows me some things that have been in the news about that company. Now, this might be a little bit out of your MO, but I don't think it would be a bad thing to do a little detective work. And so in that organization, I saw that Morgan Stanley, I think it was Morgan Stanley, had issued them $300 million in equity or line of credit type of money, venture capital. And then I also saw news in there that showed that the CEO had been replaced. So all of a sudden, I'm wondering if there's some sort of peril. There's definitely some upheaval going on. CEO's gone, Morgan Stanley, 300 million. So anyway, that homework can really, and I might bring up something like that, but I would bring up not the bad news. An article I read. If I see that my contact just got a promotion, I would certainly say, hey, I just noticed an article in the Wall Street Journal that you were promoted as president. Congratulations. So, you take that with a grain of salt, but when you can, a little bit of homework. I hope that resonates with y'all. So that's building rapport for a business client. Now, the reason I ask you to record your Zoom calls or your phone calls, I believe it's legal if you're recording it just for your purpose, and if you want to tell a person you record them for your own use. I suspect that you know how to do that better than I. And when we're doing a Zoom call or like we're doing today, it almost always shows that it's being recorded, so it's not, so it's out there. So the reason I want you to do that, and it's just for your own ears, typically. I want you to think about. Whoops, let's go. Jana? Can we go? Oh, that was my screen changing. So we're on the. So there are 3 things I want you to listen to when you've recorded and maybe reviewing a Zoom call or GoToMeetings or Zoho call. This is old research, but it's worth mentioning. Body language is the most powerful piece. It doesn't show on that graphic, but I think that's 57% of how we communicate. Tone is a big piece of communication. My mother always used to say, Steve, watch your tone. Tone is everything. My daughter started saying that to me when she got older. I know, Dad, tone. And how a kid, tone can mean a lot when a kid's talking to her daddy. And the spoken words are less impactful than all the other 3 pieces or modalities. And you can listen and watch for those, especially on a Zoom call. So if I'm looking down and I see on the Zoom call, you can see my bald head, I'd rather be looking at the camera and I'm making eye contact, not looking over here at my notes or looking over here, but I'll build more rapport just looking straight into the camera and hoping I can kind of do that. But my tendency is to look at my picture and see if I'm okay, fixing, so body language does. And even, this too, on the phone, if it's a phone call, we used to be taught to stand up during a difficult call. Do you ever do that, Jana?
I do. We have these like cool sit-stand desks, and so I try and stand up, and I find myself pacing a lot when I do that, but I like it.
Yeah, the energy has a tendency to go up, and if I have what I might call a difficult call, it feels like I'm a little more, athletic, a little more balanced, and the posture's better, and all those things. So I hope that's not too fundamental for you all, but it's on my mind. So I guess I'll use you as my guinea pig here, Jana. So tone, pace, and how we say things, and how it comes across to the listener or the viewer. So would you read this statement for me? And let's say pick a place to put the emphasis. Pick a word, one word, and put the emphasis there. You go ahead, Jen.
Let's go. I did not say they stole the money.
Okay, that's good. I did not say they stole the money. So the meaning there is could be somebody else that stole the money. Do it again and place the emphasis a different place.
Okay. I did not say they stole the money.
What they steal the birthday cake?
Yeah, stole the cards. Just the cards.
So we all know on how emails and texts can get us in big trouble because there is no tone and there's no emphasis. But even speaking, to be careful about how it's coming across. And I don't know another way to do that except have somebody monitor it or to look at it and say, how am I doing? How am I coming across? So let's leave that there for a moment. Okay, I'm going to take another breath. Any questions, Jana? Yeah, questions?
I think we're all good. I think you're doing a great job of
So how are
explaining
we doing
everything
on
really
time?
well.
How are we doing on time?
Let's see. It's 2:30. So we're doing good. As a heads up, we were planning on this being about a 45-minute webinar, but I can only book it for an hour. So, but yeah, we're doing great on time.
So let's talk about a specific way to build rapport that's authentic, that builds trust, and it helps people like you. I know we don't need any help with that, right? But I know I do. So let's go to the there you go. Understanding. It's called. Some of you have taken a test called DISC, I suspect, an evaluation that identifies communication style. It's not preference. It's not IQ. It's not even really personality. And we spend a fair amount of time in our training programs with this type of information in the early days, so you can become the best listener and the best at building a relationship, and in a very authentic way, a gentle, authentic way, build trust. So the way we do that is this. Oh, this is just a template of the, if you haven't seen a DISC profile, it tests you for your most prominent, or is it predominant, your most, the strength, the style that you most utilize when you're communicating. So there's 4. And if you've already gone through this, bear with me, we'll just do this quickly. A dominant is what we call a high D. And I've got a little bit of that in me. Typically when we're talking to an entrepreneur or somebody who's more bold, they're moving a little faster, and they're really task oriented, not a lot of detail. We all know somebody that's a high D, and you might be one yourself. Then below that is an influencer. We call it a high I, and I've got some high I in me, and a high I likes to talk, probably likes to accept a party invitation, wouldn't mind sharing a personal story. Jana is a high I. You don't know her yet, but she is. Friendly, a little bit outgoing, likes to get to know people, and so forth. So she's in a good position with her career, right place, right time, maybe. Then up on the upper left-hand corner, compliant. Now, I don't know how many attorneys would fit that compartment, but I know my son-in-law is a CPA, and he was also trained as an engineer. That's him, compliant. He follows the rules. He's very precise. He knows how much milk they drink in each day, because he knows he needs a gallon and a quart. I heard him saying this yesterday to my daughter. He said, we really need to get an extra quart of milk each week because we're running out on Thursday and they don't deliver on Friday. And I think, I've never thought of that in my whole life. When I run out of milk, I just go get some. He's planning everything out in detail. He won't make a quick decision. If he's going to buy a car, he'll look at all of them and read everything about all. And if I see a shiny object, I'll pull in and buy it. We're just total opposites, an influencer to a compliant. So I have to be careful about how I communicate with him. And then the last is steady relator, which we call a high S. And that's a person that's a little, still people oriented, a little quieter than an influencer, a little more reserved. And they like to give their opinion, but they would rather you ask for their opinion. Whereas me, on the other side, the influencer, I love giving my opinion. And you don't even have to ask. So that's just a quick snapshot at basically 4 different styles. So I'm going to use one with the limited amount of time we have here that Jana pulled up. It's the D style, and tell you how we use this and how you plug it into every day. It takes some practice. So on the left-hand side, you see some of the characteristics. By the way, we all have some of all 4 in us, and there's no right or wrong. So if I've got my high ID work, and I think as I've purchased businesses and done things in business, I've had to have a little bit of this in me, even though it wasn't natural. I think maybe I learned how to be a higher D, because I was probably my predominant. So anyway, so it can be in flux, but a high D is decisive, direct. I talked to one again this morning who was running a company, and he said, I don't want to waste your time, and I know you don't want to waste my time. That was kind of abrupt. So, okay, we're not wasting any time. So then all of a sudden I realized I've got to pick up the pace, because he does not want to hear about my golf game yesterday. There's no way. So I'm just going to tick him off. So it's just adjusting to that person's a little bit of chameleon. And that goes against maybe your grain a little bit, because we all say, hey, I am who I am. And people will either like me or they won't. And this isn't about changing or manipulating. It's just about being a better communicator. And what it does when you start to study these communication styles is it forces you to just listen better. And you start to understand the other person's side a little bit better. Boy, the world could use that a little bit right now, I think, without going too deep into politics. So we both sides need a little listening, I suspect, don't you? So what I would do, is I want to know that this person wants some control. So when I go back, remember our upfront agreement? I sort of established some control over the meeting because here's what we're going to do, and here's our time frame. It helps with this style of person that and most of the people that are D-style kind of admire that you took that step. We might just call it an agenda, but we took that step to sort of say, here's what we're going to do, and here's what works best. And typically it takes about 45 minutes. Are you okay with that? So those are just some of the things that we want to talk about when we're building relationships. And if we could only teach one thing to our attorney clients, I would say it would probably be how to tune in just a little bit better to the person across the table. And that, by the way, that applies to almost everybody we work with, whether it's in corporate America or whether it's an engineer or even a nurse or doctor. So let's do one more screen here, Jana. And the screen is just to give a little more detail about this one style of communication. And it may be for me, this may be the hardest one to communicate with. And for my son-in-law, the high C, I may be the hardest one for him to communicate because we're just almost total opposite. He's more detail-oriented, more process-oriented, a little slower in his speech. I'm a little faster, a little more people-oriented, a little less worried about detail. You see how that might be a little imbalanced? So here's just as an example. I'll teach you as much as I can here before we stop and take questions and talk a little bit more. So you see some of the points on how I would communicate with that style. And I suspect you all have a client that's this style. And somebody might be saying, no, they're all that way. And sometimes it feels that way, especially in business today. So how to communicate. So it's easy once you decide it's a D style, then I'm going to be more direct. I'm going to give them a little control. I'm going to be as logical as I can. I'm not going to overdo it with detail. I'm certainly not going to get all emo on them. And I'm going to act as quick as they want to act. I want to help them decide fast. And I will ask them, what would you like to see so that you can make your decision quickly? So I know they want to work quickly. So I'm going to use that word. There's a little bit of manipulation there. So let me take a breath there. If we go, let's go back to the other screen for a minute, Jana, the one that shows all four. Let's go back to back two slides.
This one?
Okay, so yeah, I'm just going to look at this again as an overall concept. So that we don't get too deep in the weeds here. So let me minimize my screen here. Okay, so here was a high D. Let's call it entrepreneur driver type. And then on the other side of that is a compliant person. We'll use my son-in-law as an example. And if you're that style, that's okay to use yourself. So if you see a way to start to use this knowledge in your everyday work is as follows. You see the gray arrows? So it's dividing these into quadrants. So the top two, the red and blue, let's say the entrepreneur and the engineer, they're more task oriented. So when I hear a person focusing on the task, I can kind of decide, is that a dominant or is it a compliant? And part of that then is it more active speech or more reserved? See the other arrow that goes the other way, side to side? The dominant person's more active, probably faster, probably louder. Whereas the task-oriented person, a little more reserved, detail-oriented. These are four categories of how you start to identify who you're talking to. And so it's kind of fun. I know you've learned this, Jana. How does it affect you so far in your early days of learning this DISC style communication, how you tune in better? Do you have anything to add to that would help all the folks on the call?
I think so, yes. One of the first things I actually did was look at all of my coworkers, and for some it was easier than others to determine, okay, I think that they might be high in this quadrant or this one. But trying to just interpret from daily interactions, what is their DISC, style, and then how can I best communicate with them? And before I even started transferring that to, the conversations that I have with attorneys, I will say you were probably right. A lot of the attorneys I talk to are probably high D. Definitely some of the influencers like me though. But it's been extremely helpful And I even got this handy little card that'll explain, how to best identify each of those and then how to communicate with them. Some of the key words or phrases that really seem to work well based on which quadrant they're in.
Which one is your boss? He's not on the call, is he?
Which one? He's not. No. Well, I don't think
Which
he
one
is.
of the four would you say?
Oh, he's a high D though.
No
He's
question.
taken the test before too, but I think one of my coworkers is on here. I'm sure she can attest. But yeah, he's a high D for sure. Oh, my coworker Megan, who's on here, she's a compliant. She's a C. She just nudged me.
Hi,
Oh,
Megan.
D. Oh, she's a C and a D. Yeah, Megan.
Yeah, that's schizophrenia. No, I'm just teasing.
Very bad.
Yeah, so high C, that's not a bad combination, that you can be more active, like when you need to, or when the world's pushing a little bit. But when it's required, and maybe her job requires it a little bit, she can look at the detail and be more, more zoned or zeroed in on making sure she's taking her time and looking after the I's and the T's. So that's interesting. I'm glad she's spoke up. So that's a little bit about that. So I'm going to ask you if in a minute, I'm just going to tell people, I wanted this to be all content, no selling, but I want to give all the people on the call just a minute here, if they want more information, or if they want more learning, to how to do that, how to reach out. When you get a chance, Jana, if you could just go to my last slide, it's got my email on there, the last slide oh, there it is, just so people could have it. Eve.cashdollar@sandler.com. There are 4 things I want you to do that are free. Keep learning about business development. Ask for help. It could be someone like me, but someone who can coach you, teach you, educate you, help you practice it, and make it a part of your life so that your life will get easier. Plenty of clients, plenty of income, take some of the angst out of what's coming and where the next client's coming from. And then the third thing is to figure out how you start to identify, and Jana's team will do this with you, your ideal client, so that your focus and your energy and your efforts and maybe your money are focused on the target where you're best, so that you get some synergy, make your life a little more fun, and you're really letting your talent, your skills shine. And then the fourth thing is to develop a process, so that when you're developing new clients, takes the angst out and takes the control back, because you're following your game plan, those first 10 plays after the kickoff, and you kind of know where that's going to go. And the more you do that, the better you get at, as opposed to winging it or seat of the pants. Fair enough. And then, is that okay, Jana?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
I'm going to reach down here and get a couple things.
Okay.
My props. I wrote a book a couple years ago called Simple Courage, and I'll send each one of you the ebook if you like, and you can just say to my email, "Hey, Steve, I'd like to have that book." It's about courage. It's really about coming out of your comfort zone and doing something bigger, something better, and in this case, maybe something different. So that's that. So you can have an ebook if you just ask. If you want a hard copy, just give me your address. I'll send you one. Then we have, if you want to do some of this yourself, I said get help, but some people want to do it themselves. We have a book called Selling Professional Services, and just email me and say, "Hey, give me the scoop on that," and I'll give you the link on how to get that. I think it's $20. A great book, and you can do some of it yourself. It's not a bad place to start to learn more about development. Great book. It's easy read if you're that inclined. And then I put together a program that's it's 8 weeks. It's called Foundations of Developing Clients, and it's just kind of a fun program. And we meet once a week on Zoom, and we walk through these things and many more. There's actually 10 steps that'll help you develop your skills in client development. And then if you that's typically not a bad place to start. And then sometimes people say, "I want more. I want to stay with you." And then we have a program that's longer and more involved, where we really dig in and become a coach and a mentor and a teacher. And it's called Professional Advantage. So there are 3 ways: the book, do it yourself, the 8-week course, and more deep, where we really dig in and spend time with you and become hopefully a trusted advisor and work with you a little longer till you get up and running and get the kind of client development you really want. So that. I hope that's not too much. Steve.cashdollar@sandler.com. I'd love to hear from you. So in any way, any questions, or just to make a connection.
Yeah. And we'll be sending out this webinar recording in an email blast to everyone who registered. So we'll have links and everything in those as well. So if you need to reply to that, I can send over to Steve too if you want the ebook or the physical copy there, any more information. So we'll be getting that out here before the afternoon is over, I believe. Well, here, I think we had one other slide for, definitely we'll hit on that. I'll go ahead and open up for any questions though. If anybody has anything they were curious about for Steve or me, feel free to go ahead and throw that in the chat. While you're doing that, I will also give the thing I mentioned earlier, the promotion that we are doing, which is this. So it is 2020 and it's coming to an end. And I think we're all, very, very glad about that. Looking forward to 2021. But what we are doing, knowing that a lot of small businesses and, our clients and a lot of our, targets, the solo and small law firms out there have been hit hard in 2020. So we're doing this promotion that is called the 2020 promotion. It is a $2,020 credit applicable to any of our packages. So if we talked before, you're probably familiar with what those look like. If you're curious, what those look like, feel free to reach out and I can give you that information and some pricing. But we want to, help you start off 2021 on a really solid note. So we are offering that just over $2,000 credit. That'd be happy to discuss further if you're curious. But we have not sent that out to everybody yet, so you guys are among the first to know about that. So good job on your proactive watching of this webinar. So we'll leave it here. It looks like we might wrap up just a little bit early, so give you guys a couple of minutes to email Steve and myself. But we'll stick around for just a little bit for any sorts of questions that you guys may have, or thoughts, or anything like that. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add, Steve?
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. It's fun. I hope everybody got an idea or two.
Yeah, this was really fun. I think that you provided a lot of really good, tangible, things that people can be doing. And I know how much I've benefited from taking the disc myself and also starting to decipher other people's discs around me too. It's been very interesting. So I highly recommend that.
The time went too fast. We need more time.
Well, now I know that there's, I think you can just go online and find one of the free versions of the disc to take. So it's not something that you have to, you just spend an hour or pay a certain amount to take the quiz. So if you're interested in that, I can include that in the follow-up email too. Anyone who might like to take their personality assessment.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Cool. I don't see any questions popping up. I will take that as us just doing a very good job of explaining everything. But we'll chill around for a little bit. I was gonna see if there was anything else. I had a couple thoughts. Oh, I know. As you were talking about at the end there, something that popped into my head is the importance of making sure that not only the attorney, but also their staff, especially their receptionist, is very aware of all of this. One of my primary roles is a lot of times I'll talk to receptionists or paralegals as I'm making contact with the attorneys I'm talking to, and there have been instances where I feel like those staff members could really use some training like this. So is there anything that you might like to speak to about that?
Well, I just think, especially if it's a one-man or one-woman shop or a smaller shop, they really don't have the time to spend to teach and train and maybe to monitor a little bit. And that's a hard thing. So we do a lot of that. Oftentimes an attorney or attorneys will have their support staff sit in on our trainings and just to show courtesy that they learn everything that they're doing in the effort of communication. And so that's a great tip. I wish I'd have said that to include the whole staff if you have in some of the things you're doing to build your client relationships, and especially if that's the first touch that a client will hear from you is the front desk. That's so important, as we know.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I heard a story once. Basically, it was a planned call, but this man called the firm number for his attorney friend. He first asked him, what does your ideal client look like? Tell me about them. And he was a personal injury attorney, so he called. The receptionist answered, knowing that the attorney was sitting there with him. He wasn't going to be available, so he said, my son was just in this car accident. He was injured pretty badly. I'd love to talk to the attorney. And the receptionist just said, he's not here. You can call back tomorrow. didn't get any contact information. And so the attorney was just sitting there seething at the idea of letting this potential case go. So definitely.
Yeah, I always hate to suggest that we're going to spy on our team because they're great people and they're doing great. But occasionally having a friend call to see how they're treated, it isn't a bad idea. Sometimes it's not a pleasant, but most of the time it's good.
That being said, I have heard some really, really good. I've had some great conversations with some people as well. So definitely some really good ones out there. Yeah. Well, I don't see any questions coming in, so I think we can go ahead and kind of let you guys go. Take these extra 10 minutes, go, do something in line with what we discussed today, or just go like eat some snacks. That's probably what I would do. But it was a pleasure to have you guys all on today. Thank you so much for attending. Be on the lookout for the email coming out after. Any final thoughts for me, Steve?
No, thanks everyone. Good luck.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye.